Good afternoon. We are getting started here at Spartan Chemical's presentation of Stop the Spread of Infection, Cleaning for Health in the Face of a Global Pandemic. This is the 2 o'clock session, and welcome to all of our attendees. Thank you for joining. So the team over here at Spartan has put a lot of effort into providing valuable information and resources to help you, the professional cleaning industry, in your valiant fight against this invisible enemy. One of such resources is this broadcast that we're coming live via Skype from our own socially distanced desks, practicing what we are preaching. Our industry definitely is on the front lines of helping to prevent the spread of infection. And it's what we do day in and day out, 365 days a year. So whether it's COVID-19, the common cold, or the flu, it's important to be prepared and take the required steps to clean and disinfect properly with an effective infection control program. This means the right products combined with training and management tools. Today's presentation is designed to arm you with the knowledge and tools needed to stop the spread of infection through a managed cleaning program. And before we get started, I'll take some time to introduce you to your presenters. And starting off, we'll start with Nate Gobert. Nate is our Manager of Research and New Product Development. Nate has been a member of Spartan's Research and Development team since 2006. As a formulator, Nate added over 45 products to Spartan's product catalog, mainly in the laundry and warewash categories. In 2014, Nate was promoted to Manager of Research and New Product Development. He works closely with sales and marketing to deliver strategic and innovative product solutions. Nate received his undergraduate from Texas A&M and his master's from The Ohio State University. Woo! Go Bucks! OH!
IO.
Next, we have John Schaaf. John is our Director of Training and Government Services. He has over 30 years of industry experience and has worn several hats for Spartan, including Director of Government Services, Bio-Augmentation Manager, and Regional Manager. John is an ISSA ACT and SIMS Industry Certified Expert, a U.S. GBC Lead Green Associate, and he sits on various industry advisory panels. John is a graduate of Drake University. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Callie.
Up next is Jason Welch. Jason is a microbiologist for Spartan. He has been on our R&D team since 1998. Jason is our key expert when it comes to disinfection. He has formulated close to 100 products for Spartan, including disinfectants, hand care, like the popular light and foamy line, food processing chemicals, drain line maintenance chemicals, industrial warewashing products, carpet care, industrial degreasers, vehicle care, and hard surface cleaners, like the fan favorite Clean by Proxy. Don't forget to weigh in your vote for our final 4 of Spartan cleaning products on Facebook. Jason also holds 4 patents. Good afternoon, Jason.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And finally, me, I'm Callie Sarter. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Spartan. I've been with Spartan for almost 8 years now, and I have 1 patent. Sorry for that little shameless bragging, but I'm pretty proud of my patent. I am also a Buckeye. I did my undergrad at The Ohio State University and my MBA at Portland State. Okay, so a couple more housekeeping items before we get into the presentation, the reason that you're all here. The format will include a 30-minute presentation and then about 30 minutes of question and answer. During the broadcast, you will be able to submit a question through the Q&A panel on the right of your broadcast window. When you submit a question, it will come to the Q&A moderator view for us. You won't be able to see other attendees' questions. So we will do our best to address all submissions. And if we miss one of your questions, we're going to update our frequently asked questions document on our website, and we will post the responses there. The other thing that we'll post on the website is this presentation and then a recording of this presentation as well. So that will be at www.spartanchemical.com, and right from the home page, you just click the button that says read more about our policies and resources for COVID-19, and that'll take you directly to a resource page, which we'll talk a little bit about when we get into the presentation. But that is where you can find a copy, a PDF or a PowerPoint file of this presentation, and you can view the recording and then view the FAQs. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to turn it over to Nate, and he'll get us started.
All right, thank you, Callie. And thank you to all of our attendees today. Today, our presentation will cover an overview of what COVID-19 is and how it spreads. We will also cover how we, as an industry, can help stem the tide of the spread of this infection, specifically the role that proper hand hygiene and proper cleaning and disinfection practices will play. Now, to kick things off, we are going to have Jason Welch talk about what exactly COVID-19 is.
So COVID-19, what exactly is it? Everybody's been talking about the coronavirus. Well, the coronavirus, believe it or not, has actually been around for a very, very long time. Coronaviruses are actually typically overlooked in the medical community because they basically the cause of a common cold. Typically, most human coronaviruses, you get a little bit of the sniffles and it doesn't really cause too much damage. So what has made COVID-19, or what we call now SARS-CoV-2, a little bit more dangerous than the typical coronavirus? Well, what has happened, and what happens with new viruses that emerge, is this particular one started out in an animal host. Right now, research is kind of showing that it stemmed from a bat and has now jumped to a human host. So you have two factors that go on. You have the virus trying to adapt to a new host, and you have the host saying, what in the heck is in me right now, and I have no immunity to it. So when that happens, you have what you call a virulence factor go way up. And virulence is the amount of damage that the virus does to the human host. So that's why you're starting to see a lot of sickness and death kind of with this. And everybody's immune system is a little bit different, so it can range from mild symptoms to a full-on lung infection that can put you down. But what makes this a little bit different than the flu is that it is carried by asymptomatic carriers. And what that is you can have somebody that has the virus, shows no symptoms of it, but still can spread the virus. And that's what's made this one a little bit more dangerous. And then with the common flu, you have flu vaccines, which actually help build up immunity within the population to kind of curb the spread of the different flu viruses. So with all those factors going on, that's why the COVID-19 has kind of sprouted into this pandemic that we're in right now. So one of the ways to help reduce or understand the pandemic is to break the mode of transmission. So how does it spread? Well, the number one way that this spreads is through person-to-person transmission through respiratory droplets, coughing, sneezing. It's an airborne virus, and you can easily breathe that in. The second most common transmission is through close person contact, shaking hands or being in there. So this is why the social distancing has become such an important thing. That's one of the best ways to break that mode of transmission, is to basically stay away from people. If you can smell somebody's breath, you're too close, and that's typically, when you want to talk about your 3 to 6 foot distance away from people, that's where that comes from. And then, of course, if you're sick and you breathe and you touch a contaminated surface, or you actually contaminate a surface, that's another way that it can be spread. And, I'll be frank and honest with this. It's great that we have disinfectants, but this is one that it's going to take a large thing to do to break the mode of transmission. We're not going to just be able to spray away this particular virus. So we'll talk about hand hygiene and cleanliness as we go through here, as I turn it over to Nate to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much, Jason. So before we get into what we as an industry can do to combat it, what can we as individuals do to help protect ourselves during this pandemic? First of all, with the speed and the conflicting information that's coming around, we think it's very important that you stay aware of the latest information on the COVID-19 outbreak. I know it, as much as you'd like to just turn on the TV and listen to the news, we think it's more important that you check reputable places like the CDC, EPA, and your state websites for current information. We've also made sure to add a host of links at the end of this presentation in the educational resources portion, so that you can learn even more on your own, because there's a lot more to cover than we can even hit on today. The other things that we can do is wash our hands. By far and away, the most important thing that we can do during this outbreak and during any type of cold season, flu season, is to thoroughly and frequently wash our hands. We also want to try to avoid touching our eyes or nose or mouth unless we've recently washed our hands, so that we don't attempt to infect ourselves by touching a contaminated surface. At this point in time, many of us in different states are practicing social distancing with people who aren't in our household. So let's keep 6 feet between you and the rest of society for the next few weeks. Remember to cover your nose and mouth when you cough and sneeze, not with your hands, but with a tissue or in the bend of your elbow. Now, the most important thing that we can do in our industry to help during this pandemic is to promote and facilitate proper and frequent hand washing, as well as proper and cleaning, disinfecting procedures. The most important thing that we can do to stop the spread of infection is to wash our hands frequently and thoroughly. Regardless if it's a SARS-CoV-2 or influenza A or influenza B or the common cold, washing our hands with soap and water is the best weapon we have to combat the virus. I should note that when you do download this presentation, as Callie alluded to, all of these links are active and will take you to an interactive content or more resources that we feel would be of benefit to you. By now, we should all know how to wash our hands properly. Over the last few weeks, though, it's been pretty comical to see how many people are surprised that you should be washing your hands for 20 seconds, or that you need to wash between your fingers or the backs of your hands. And if you're still confused about how to do it properly, the links on the previous slide will take you to some resources that should help you out. Now, in the absence of being able to get to a sink to wash your hands, or if you don't have running water, hand sanitizers can be used, but they are not a substitute for proper hand washing. Hand sanitizers are not more effective at ridding your hands of germs. The physical removal of the pathogens and the soil that's on your hands, removing them with soap and water, is the most effective option. It doesn't matter whether you were using an antibacterial soap or a normal soap. It's the practice of frequent and thorough hand washing with soap and water that should always be your first option and is our first weapon in this fight against COVID-19. And Callie will take you guys through some of our options to help you in your hand washing programs.
Thanks, Nate. So Spartan offers 2 different platforms to help you make that all-important hand hygiene readily available to your customers. We have our Light and Foamy and then our Foamy IQ platforms. So depending on what's most important to you, what your critical business needs are, then each platform is going to have different benefits for those needs. The light and foamy line is a bulk fill product line, which means that the container or receptacle can be refilled. So if sustainability is really important to you, or cost, this is definitely going to be your most economical option. It does also allow for touch-free dispensing. So those are great right now for all those freestanding hand sanitizer locations that you need to service. It's also available in a 18-ounce foamer. This is a great option for a desk or a reception area, really anywhere where they don't want to install a dispenser. So that's a light and foamy line. And then we also have our innovative and award-winning Foamy IQ. And so this product has been so popular right now, and I think it's because it can be installed almost anywhere. We are seeing them on door jambs. I saw one outside attached to a flagpole. I mean, the options are endless because of its slim footprint, and it really does fit in spaces where traditional dispensers don't fit. So the other aspect that I think is really driving how popular this product line is, especially with this COVID pandemic, is that you get a fresh, clean dispenser each time that you deplete the cartridge. So that's very appealing because the paddle on a hand soap dispenser is a high touch point, right? So this is either something that you're going to have to clean all the time, or with Foamy IQ, when the soap is depleted or the sanitizer is depleted, you simply take it off the bracket and then recycle the empty cartridge, put on a fresh, clean one, and then you're good to go for your hand soap or a hand sanitizer. So I'm also including on this slide here a list of all of the different products that we have available in those two platforms, and indicating on this chart here which one of them are FDA registered antimicrobial drugs, and which ones are hand sanitizers and which ones are hand soaps. So as Nate said, this will be downloadable for you, and you'll be able to go back and reference that tiny little table that might be hard to see on the broadcast. Okay, back to you, Nate.
Thank you. So obviously, we're going to tell you, and we're going to keep reiterating, our number one weapon in the fight against COVID-19 is going to be hand washing. But right behind that, covering its flank, is going to be proper cleaning and disinfection. To take you through the proper cleaning steps, I'm going to bring John Schaff in to outline that.
Thanks, Nate. When it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, we must first understand our environment. Some environments, such as healthcare, are controlled in such a way that once we clean and disinfect an area, we can actually have a continued impact because we are controlling the access to those areas. But most environments, the reason cleaning becomes more important is because the disinfection process only lasts until the next person or group of people actually enter that area. So think of a school, a store, or a gym setting, for example. You really can't control the access points, and that's the reason outside of healthcare, unless you have an outbreak, the CDC is actually recommending following your normal detergent cleaning regimen and focus on removing the soil and maintaining generally clean surfaces. Additionally, when cleaning and disinfecting soiled surfaces, it's important to wear the proper personal protective equipment, or PPE. People tend to focus on finding out what PPE they have to wear based off their safety data sheet of the product. However, it's at least as equally important to think about what PPE you really need to wear to properly clean and safely clean and disinfect a surface. Picture, for instance, you have a wiper or a wipe that the safety data sheet says no PPE required. Let me ask you this. would you use it to clean up a stranger's vomit without putting on PPE such as gloves? I doubt it. Remember, follow your proper procedures, clean first and foremost, then disinfect when and where appropriate. Back to you, Nate.
Thank you, John. As John was discussing there, your routine standard cleaning procedures should still be followed during an outbreak, no matter what type of an outbreak it is, whether it's cold and flu season or whether it's a COVID-19 pandemic. However, when we're in a situation where we have a pathogen that's showing to be very contagious, we need to pay even more attention to a facility's high touch surfaces or high touch points. Now, this will be facility dependent, but some common ones are going to be your handrails downstairs, toilet handles, doorknobs, light fixtures, and switches. We need to be cleaning these very frequently because these high touch surfaces can create a vicious cycle of transmission and the spread of the infectious material. You could start out with clean hands after leaving the restroom where you've washed your hands for 20 seconds and done everything properly, only to pick up a pathogen on an elevator button, which you then spread to a doorknob walking into your office and then to a light switch. And then when someone else comes in and touches your doorknob, they then will spread it to a different part of the building. And this is how you rapidly can spread a pathogen like SARS-CoV-2 if you are not cleaning properly and frequently these high-touch surfaces. Now, a question we get often is, what is a one-step disinfectant cleaner? A one-step disinfectant cleaner is a product that has been verified by the EPA to be effective against specific organisms in the presence of 5% blood serum, which is a stand-in for soiled surface. During our non-pandemic times, you can use these products on lightly soiled surfaces without the need to pre-clean the surface prior to disinfection. So as long as you allow the product to be properly diluted and allow the dwell time, you can disinfect that surface without the pre-cleaning. However, when it comes to COVID-19, the CDC is recommending that all surfaces be pre-cleaned prior to applying a disinfectant. So even if you were using one of our one-step disinfectant cleaners, you should still and should be required to clean the surface before applying that disinfectant solution and then allowing it to be in contact with the surface for the label specified time. Now, by far and away, for the last 3 to 4 weeks, the most frequently asked question to all of us on this panel and all of our regional managers, and probably why most of you are even attending this webinar, is which Spartan disinfectants kill this coronavirus? Now, first off, because this is so new, no product or chemical can claim to kill the actual SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the cause of COVID-19. That being said, it is important to remember that this virus is a coronavirus. So like all other coronaviruses, which are enveloped viruses, and based on that structure, once the EPA protocol is established, the scientific community believes that if your surface disinfectant is effective against other coronaviruses, such as human coronavirus or SARS-associated coronavirus, it will be effective against SARS-CoV-2. Due to the swift spread of this virus, though, the EPA did announce that their emerging viral pathogen policy had been triggered on January 22nd of this year. The emerging viral pathogen policy is basically a temporary waiver from the EPA allowing specific off-label claims to be transmitted via technical bulletins, social media posts, or phone conversations. These are specific and documented phrases that have to be pre-approved by the EPA in advance and are only allowed to be transmitted during a situation like we are in right now. At some point in the future, we and any other company that is using these emerging viral pathogen claims will have to delete or rescind all references to them. because when this pandemic goes away, and it will go away, we are going back to the mode of we can only make claims that are on the label and in reference to the organisms that we can kill and that we can market. So what does an emerging viral pathogen statement look like? Well, let's use BNC 15 as an example. BNC 15 has demonstrated an effectiveness against viruses similar to SARS-CoV-2 on hard, non-porous surfaces. Therefore, BNC 15 can be used against SARS-CoV-2 when used in accordance with the directions for use against enterovirus D68 and norovirus on hard, non-porous surfaces. In this case, we have pre-approval from the EPA to make this claim based on our established efficacy against enterovirus and norovirus, which are much harder to kill small, non-enveloped viruses. You'll notice we can't make the claim that we can kill it, but we can say we can kill other viruses that will make it easier for us to make this connotation. Now, we can offer that same claim for TB Quat as an RTU product, as well as BNC 15 as the dilutable option. As long as you use these products as directed in and cited in these statements for those organisms, you can be assured that it should be effective against SARS-CoV-2. Generally, products making this claim are slightly more aggressive from the formulation standpoint or require more contact time than usual. Now, following up with the emerging viral pathogen products, on March 13th of this year, the EPA updated their list in, which is their disinfectants for use against SARS-CoV-2. The EPA updated this list to include not only the emerging viral pathogen claims, but also products that have efficacy against a coronavirus, such as human coronavirus or SARS-associated coronavirus. We have compiled all of the product offerings that Spartan has that are represented on List In, and it is important to note that that List In is a searchable database, but it is searchable and sorted by the primary registration number. Now, to explain the differences between a primary registration number, a supplemental registration, and an EPA registration number in general, and how to effectively search List In, I'm going to have Jason come back on and walk us through that process.
So let me try to decipher the code of EPA registrations for you guys. The one wonderful thing about disinfectants is that they are actually EPA registered pesticides, and they have to be on file with EPA, and this is all public information. So the way to actually look that up is to get the EPA registration number, which can be found underneath the active ingredient list on a label. In this particular example, we're looking at HALT. HALT is 10324-93-5741. Now, to decipher this, the first set of digits is the designation number for the company that owns that registration and has it on file with EPA. In this particular case, 10324 is Pilot Mason. Now, the second set of digits, the 93, is the formula number on file, and then if there's a third set of digits, in this particular case, the 5741, is the company that is leasing that formula. In this particular case, it's Spartan. Spartan's designation is 5741. Underneath that registration number, you'll see an establishment number. In our case, it's 5741-OH-1, and that is Spartan's designation number as a manufacturer of that formula. Back to you, Nate.
Thank you, Jason. Callie, would you please go ahead and cover some of our additional tools and the resources that can be found on our website for our distributors and customers?
I would love to, Nate. So we have put together a compendium of resources for you on our website. It's very simple to get to it. You'll just go to the homepage of SpartanChemical.com, www.spartanchemical.com. And from that homepage, you'll see that there is a button you can click that says read more about our policies and resources for COVID-19. If you click that, it will take you off to a page shown there on the right that has a whole bunch of resources for you to use. This is actually where we'll be placing this presentation that we're going through right now. We're also including a link to view the recording of this presentation. That list N that Nate showed with all of the Spartan disinfectants that are included on list N, with a helpful resource to have you look up the primary registration. So if you want to search by which registration is Spartan's, you can do that. We've got additional resources for our distributor partners where you can click and learn more about technical information and where we are from a company in terms of all of our notifications, our Spartograms. And then it also has featured products that can help you navigate through what is important to have in your inventory and which products are recommended by Spartan for this type of cleaning and disinfection. So that is our resource for you, and we have that available, and we will continue as this pandemic continues. And everything is evolving and changing, and as new information is becoming available, we will post it on our website. So that's something that you'll want to bookmark and then revisit as frequently as new developments happen. Go ahead and turn it back to Nate now to keep us moving along.
Thank you, Callie. We also have some additional educational tools and assets that I'd like John to walk us through quickly.
When it comes to cleaning, it takes more than just good quality products. It takes good people following good processes. Good people trying to learn good processes can log on to a great LMS program called CleanCheck. It's available 24/7, 365. And the modules range from OSHA chemical safety to pandemic cleaning and disinfecting processes. The LMS includes video and written content. It also provides testing and certificates of completion. If you download this presentation, the link will take you to an informational video on the program. Additionally, a second tool that's also important is not only to clean, but in many environments, it's also important to measure and validate what we've done. And our Spartan's CompuClean quality assurance module does just that. It, in combination with a work management tool, an inventory management tool, and an equipment tracking tool all in one, give you a wide variety of capabilities to manage and monitor what you're doing in those environments. Be sure to click on the link to learn more. Back to you, Nate.
Thank you, John. So we started off this presentation saying that one of the best things that you can do in an emerging viral pathogen pandemic situation is to educate yourself and arm yourself with knowledge. So we wanted to make sure that we would provide some resources for you to learn more about the topic, as well as on the second page, we'll go through some industry specific areas to check out to. But again, a link directly from this presentation to our COVID-19 preparedness website, which is going to be an amalgamation of all of the information that we can provide and tools to you. CDC is the most authoritative source for information concerning disease outbreaks. So in a pandemic situation, that's the place that you should start with to get your information. They include an FAQ, as well as this, the OSHA guidelines for bloodborne pathogens. So those of you that are dealing in healthcare settings and having to clean up more biologically contaminated waste than normal, it's something good to review, as well as the CDC's pandemic preparedness response or resources. For those of you that are in food production, food safety, food handling, the FDA has released their COVID-19 preparedness document, which outlines the steps that you should be paying attention to. So for all of you that are listening in or watching this on tape, this is the place that I would start if I were you. For those of you that work in restaurant, quick service restaurants, sit-down restaurants, the National Restaurant Association's Corona Information and Resources Bulletin is here, as well as the interim guidance on management of COVID-19 in correctional and detention facilities for all of you that may be listening in or watching this presentation that are in a jail, prison, or detention center facility. We have the ISSA's prevention and control for the cleaning industry, specific to COVID-19, and then also a link to infectious control and laundry and how the steps that we take in our normal laundry cycle are effective in this pandemic situation. In closing, a managed cleaning program is the most effective weapon our industry has against the spread of viruses, whether it's SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19, the flu, or the next pandemic, which we hope will never come. Our janitors and cleaning crews and cleaning professionals are really on the front lines of this battle against an outbreak. Remember, frequent and thorough hand washing is our most effective weapon in this fight. Facility managers need to ensure that high touch points are being properly cleaned and disinfected. An effective cleaning procedure followed by properly used disinfectants where needed will break the cycle of infection on high touch surfaces. We have the training and educational tools to ensure safety, professionalism, and compliance for all of our customers and distribution partners. For Callie, Jason, John, and myself, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this presentation. I will now turn things over to Lauren, who will be leading the Q&A portion of the webinar, and this concludes the presentation portion. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. This is Callie, and Lauren Clement is our marketing communications manager here at Spartan, and we did one of these sessions earlier this morning, and so she's going to get started with some really great questions that came from that broadcast while I go through and start to pull out your questions for this session. So I'm going to kick it over to Lauren.
Okay, the first question I have is for you, Nate. Are hand hygiene products regulated by the EPA?
Great question. Short answer is no. Our hard surface disinfectants are regulated by the EPA. Antimicrobial hand hygiene products are regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. The FDA monograph is the FDA's set of rules and regulations specific specifies the acceptable active ingredients for their use. The two most common ones that you'll find in the market today are ethanol and alcohol, as well as benzalkonium chloride. So all your antimicrobial hand products, hand care products are going to be FDA certified.
All right, thanks, Nate. Here is another hand hygiene question for you. Why doesn't Spartan list the viruses that its hand hygiene products kill?
This comes up a lot. So again, people that are used to looking at EPA registered disinfectants are used to seeing a list of viruses that the product can claim. They're used to seeing a lot of marketed claims on those types of products. But an FDA regulated product, such as your antimicrobial hand washes and sanitizers, they're not allowed to make claims that you don't have efficacy against. The monograph for the FDA assumes that the active ingredients have antimicrobial activity, and responsible manufacturers like Spartan self-verify their formula's efficacy against an FDA recommended list of 26 organisms, which include bacteria, yeast, and mold. Making antiviral claims or reduction in illness claims are considered false and misleading under the monograph. Making these claims could cause the FDA to issue a warning letter and an order to cease and desist making these claims. So in short, listing viruses or making claims about antiviral considerations or claims on our list would be against the law, and it's something that we will not do.
All right, thank you. This one is for you, Jason. Why does the CDC only recommend alcohol sanitizers?
That's actually a good question, and one that I've wondered myself for quite some time. So I kind of had to do some digging on this one, but Approximately about 15 years ago, the CDC began recommending greater than 60% alcohol sanitizers based on limited academia data. Um, Unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, in the past 15 years, there's been many improvements in formulation for hand hygiene products. And because if you make an antimicrobial claim on a hand cleaner, they're FDA registered drugs. And you have to provide data to back up everything that you say. And as Nate mentioned earlier, you can't make virucidal claims on hand sanitizers. There's no test method that can prove it, just the way the virology works on that thing. So it's interesting to see that CDC recommending this stuff when they're actually violating the FDA's actual monograph is making virucidal claims. And what I think it's important to understand, you can't just compare an active ingredient to another active ingredient in a hand care formula, because hand care formulas are exactly that. They're formulas, and there's other ingredients in the hand cleaners that actually help lend itself to efficacy with the things. And it's like saying, hey, I'm comparing a sugar to your cookie recipe sort of thing. You know, just because you have a certain amount of sugar in your recipe doesn't necessarily make it great. There's other things that go in there to make the product work much better than just its own active ingredient on there. So hopefully that clears something up a little bit, and I will pass it back to you, Lauren.
All right, thank you, Jason. John, can you please tell us if Spartan products work in electrostatic sprayers?
Sure will. Electrostatic sprayers are one of the many options that can be used to apply disinfectants and other cleaners to hard surfaces. Most disinfectants require pre-cleaning in order to decontaminate that surface or remove the soil prior to disinfection. Specific to COVID-19 cleaning, CDC is recommending a multi-step cleaning process with pre-cleaning preceding disinfection and observing recommended dwell times and post-dwell cleaning instructions.
Jason, could you give us some more details on what dwell time is?
Oh, certainly. Well, dwell time is simply the amount of time that is needed to inactivate or disinfect an actual organism. Dwell time is actually kind of important to be followed. If you truly want to disinfect, you have to let the chemical do its job. In order for a disinfectant to work, it has to come in contact with the microorganism. So it's also, as we keep talking about, it's important for pre-cleaning to remove soils so that you can get your disinfectant in contact with the microorganism so it can work itself out. So back to you, Lauren.
I have another one for you, Jason. What guidance can you give about disinfecting food prep areas like food processing and kitchens?
This is a great question. And one thing that I have to stress is that there is a gigantic difference between a disinfectant and a sanitizer. In food processing, you should have, hopefully by this time, SSOPs on how to clean your food prep areas. And one of the big things that you have to do is pre-clean the surface, followed by a potable water rinse to rinse any cleaner residue off, and then you leave a non-rinse food contact sanitizer. And what's important about that is that the sanitizers are registered and regulated to be left on, and the active ingredient cannot exceed safe levels. So when you use a sanitizer too strong, you run a risk of actually adulterating your food or potentially poisoning people. So it is a terrible idea to try to say, oh, I'm going to use a product like our Sanity 10 at 1200 ppms because they think more is better. And if you leave that on a surface, that could lead to a lot more problems than good. So again, it is extremely important to, in the case of Sanity 10, it's 200 ppms. You want to make sure that you're at that level and not try to do too much, because at the end of the day, cleaning becomes more important than the destruction of the microorganism itself. So again, always follow safe food handling practices. In actual food processors, they've gone through a whole point of validating their cleaning procedures, and those are actually great for any microorganism, whether it's COVID-19, norovirus, or any other sort of E. coli outbreak that we used to be dealing with the romaine lettuce outbreak. So again, those procedures are set up to combat any sort of microorganism. Back to you, Lauren.
All right, John, what can you tell us about using microfiber for coronavirus cleanup?
Yeah, microfiber is effective for working with coronavirus when used in conjunction with the cleaners and disinfectants combined together. And that's the basic, simple part of it. Don't try to use the microfiber by itself. Use it in conjunction with your proper pre-cleaning product and your disinfectant as the follow-up step. Back to you, Lauren.
Okay. Jason, would you recommend spray or wiping disinfectants?
This is a great question, and honestly, the best way to apply a disinfectant is through wiping. The one thing that they teach you in the bloodborne pathogen standard is to flood the surface. So if you work with a bucket and rag sort of technique, that is one of the better ways to actually apply a disinfectant. The reason why they teach you that in the bloodborne pathogen standard is because if you put a hard, coarse spray onto a surface, there's a potential that you could aerosolize anything that's on that surface and breathe that in if you're not having the proper protective equipment. And in this particular case with COVID-19, it's actually inhaled through respiratory droplets. So if you're blasting a surface with a hard spray, there's a potential that if there's any soil or any sort of virus on that thing, you could re-aerosolize that and infect yourself. So I'm a very big proponent of the bucket and wipe method. And also, I mean, you don't want to be misting around. If you're in charge of cleaning surfaces 8 hours a day and walking around with a spray bottle, it's probably not a good idea to be breathing in that all the time. So again, for safety's sake, it's always best to use the wipe and bucket method. I mean, I know it's not always possible to use that, but I would avoid spraying as much as possible. And I guess I'm going to add another frequently asked question. I know I'm stepping over my toes here, but I want to talk about fogging as well, because that's something that I commonly get, and it kind of falls in the line of proper way of applying a disinfectant. And fogging is really not a good way to apply a disinfectant. In order for a fogger to work, you actually have to pre-clean the surface. And if you're actually pre-cleaning with an EPA registered disinfectant, you're actually kind of taking care of it. And fogging just kind of opens up liability with, again, you're aerosolizing small droplets of a disinfectant, and it's just not a good way to get surfaces wet. And secondly, none of our products are approved for use through foggers. We don't have data to provide that they actually work. So you kind of have to be very careful with fogging disinfectants for use. And in fact, even in the CDC guidelines for infection control, they don't recommend that hospitals even fog our disinfectants in patient care areas just for that particular reason. Ineffective, and it's just not a good way of applying a disinfectant due to the misting and aerosolizing of the actual disinfectant itself. So back to you, Lauren.
All right, that was great info. Thank you. This one is for you, Nate. How do I disinfect my laundry for COVID-19?
All right. Short answer is go to the link in the end of this presentation for infection control and laundry. The long answer, or the little bit longer answer to that, is that you don't need to do anything more special than you currently are doing. So if you think that your laundry is infected with anything, whether it be COVID-19 or whether you're washing surgery garments or isolation garments, you're going to put it through its normal wash process. Just like when we're deciding which disinfectant to use, we need to determine the surface we're cleaning. So you're going to want to use chemicals and water temperatures where appropriate based off of the fabric. So if it's microfiber, we can't use chlorine bleach or super high temperatures. We go to alternate chemistries for that. But you're going to wash it, put it through the normal wash process. We're going to want to make sure before we put it in the dryer that it's visibly free of all soil and all stains, to make sure that there's no remaining material there or vegetative pathogens. At that point in time, we want to put it in the dryer, and we want to dry it for as long and as hot as possible to ensure that everything is there. But there are multiple modes of inactivation of pathogens that happen through the laundry cycle. So as long as you're doing your standard routine for laundry, you have nothing to worry about.
All right, thanks, Nate. Jason, can you please tell us why this is spreading so fast?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the coronavirus, this particular one, is spread through asymptomatic carriers, which means you can have the virus, display no symptoms, and infect other people. If anybody wants to have an interesting lesson in epidemiology, I will bring up a name of Mary Malone, otherwise known as Typhoid Mary. She was kind of the first case study of an asymptomatic carrier, and she was basically a line cook and a housekeeper for many prominent people in New York City back in the Stone Ages, shall we say. And death followed her everywhere. People couldn't quite figure out what was going on, but she was a asymptomatic carrier of the typhimurium bacteria, which caused typhoid fever. And even after she was told to kind of stay away, she changed her name and still employed herself as a line cook, and then actually killed 50 people in New York City. So it's very important to understand the whole social distancing and keeping away from people just because of this. And that's why it is spreading so fast. It's just the people not knowing they have it, still coming in close contact with other people. They get it. And this one, for every one person that's infected with it, they can infect up to about 3 people. And that's kind of what it goes exponentially with this sort of thing. So back to you, Lauren.
All right, I have one more for you, Jason. There are a lot of questions about if our popular products like NABC and X-Effect work for coronavirus. How would you respond to that?
That's a good question. And the answer to this is yes and no. So for example, with NABC is a toilet bowl cleaner. It's still a great toilet bowl cleaner and will always be a good toilet bowl cleaner. Does it have the coronavirus kill claims on it? No. But it was really never intended to be a disinfectant for hospital use. I mean, when you look at something like HDQ neutral, those are hospital grade disinfectants and they're intended for hospital surfaces. But if you have a facility that has NABC, it doesn't mean you have to stop using that. I mean, you still have to clean your restrooms and it still does a great job. And as we mentioned earlier, hand hygiene is the #1 way to break the mode of transmission besides social distancing. So if you're cleaning your restrooms with NABC, that's fine. You still should be washing your hands after you use the facilities anyway, so that should be a good thing. Same thing with X-Effect. It's still a great floor mopping product, and in fact, as this pandemic kind of wears on, I've had many calls where supply is starting to get short with some of the disinfectants. So in a way to kind of push out the use of your actual disinfectants that are good for the COVID-19, maybe prioritize where you're going to use those disinfectants. So say you had a drum of Tribase in your facility that you've used forever to degrease and clean, and you have 1 canister of wipes and you wanted to make use of that stuff, you could still clean with Tribase. It's still a great cleaner. It still does its job, but maybe focus on some of the more prominent areas. So if you're a grocery store, maybe some of the keypads is where you're going to use your disinfectant more, where you can still maintain floor maintenance and good hygienic practices with the other products. So at the end of the day, cleaning is more important than this destruction of the organism. So that's how I kind of would answer that. Back to you, Lauren. Did we freeze up?
Thanks. Sorry about that. I went on mute. This is Callie. I was collecting all the questions from this session. So a lot of what you all were asking is very similar to what was asked in the first session. And so a lot of the questions were covered. We have a few that were not, so let's make sure and get those addressed. And again, we will do our best to get our FAQ updated and get that posted on our pandemic response page. So this would be for Nate or Jason. Carpet and upholstery, there's a lot of questions around that. Who wants to take that one?
I could take the carpet and the upholstery and the soft surfaces.
Okay.
Technically, you cannot disinfect a porous surface. Carpeting, fabric basically qualifies as a porous surface. At best, you can possibly sanitize, but at the end of the day, it's proper to select products that are applicable to those surfaces. So if you have carpet, if somebody sneezed on the carpet and you're going to try to clean for this COVID-19 stuff, again, it goes back to cleaning and physical removal. Everybody wants a disinfectant, but let me put it in an analogy form. You're at a picnic and you drop your sandwich on the ground, you get ants. Now, if you want to take the disinfectant mindset, yeah, you can grab a can of Raid or a CR2 for your Spartan fans out there and spray the ants, and sure, you're going to kill the ants. But if you don't pick up that sandwich and throw it away or do the 5-second rule and eat it, you still get ants 5 minutes later. So in the case of carpet, just select a good cleaner, a good extraction product, and clean the carpet that way. And physical removal is going to be much better for that aspect. If it's couch cushions or other fabrics, cloths and things like that, if you can remove them and launder them, the laundering process is going to take care of that. As far as couch cushions go, again, a good extraction product on that would actually work better. This virus, believe it or not, is very fragile. It's not a very hard virus to destroy. It's got a lipid envelope around the thing, and most detergents actually can kind of break that thing down. So again, sometimes it's not as much about the product, whether we got some magic fairy dust that can kill it, as opposed to the processes that we're doing. So when it comes to soft surfaces, clean it with an appropriate product. Don't try to spray bleach on your couch, otherwise you're going to destroy that sort of surface. Same thing with carpet. You don't want to use an acid toilet bowl cleaner on there because you think it's going to be a hot product. You'll end up melting the carpet fibers. So just use surface appropriate products. Back to you, Lauren.
Yeah, speaking of bleach, there are a lot of questions about, should I be using bleach to clean for COVID-19? Or is quat better than bleach? Can you take that one as well, Jason?
Sure. Now, the one thing about bleach is that it's a corrosive material. It oxidizes things. It can destain things. So bleach on every surface is really not practical. I mean, you can obviously ruin clothes with that. You certainly don't want to be spraying that down on keyboards, as you can short those things out. There's advantages and disadvantages to every type of chemistry. One of the advantages that quat chemistry has is that they're relatively surface safe type of chemistries. The quats actually can act as surfactants, so they help with the emulsification of soils and physical removal of things. Bleach, I'll never knock as a bad disinfectant. It's a great oxidizer, but again, as I mentioned before, it's kind of a corrosive high pH situation and not suitable for all surfaces. You can rust metal parts if left on in the wrong sort of situation. It can cause more damage than it does good. Alcohol, alcohol is a great antiseptic, but it's flammable and it can flash off surfaces pretty quickly. So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit about that. But again, it goes back to selecting the right chemistry for the right surface, and again, doing the right job and focus on cleaning things first.
Okay, yeah, so related in that same vein, there are quite a few questions about fitness equipment and what you would recommend for that cleaning procedure.
So fitness equipment is an interesting situation. At the end of the day, you kind of want to use products because of the high traffic with there and the potential for skin contact. You don't want to be using high levels of alkalinity or quat or even bleach for that matter, because the next person that gets on there, or they sit in a wet pool because nobody didn't wipe it up properly, they're going to ruin their clothes, or you're going to run into skin burns and stuff like that. So sanitizing levels are going to be about the best for that sort of thing, and also for the life of the equipment too. I mean, if you start spraying bleach around and some of the little pivot points on there can start rusting out, and then you're going to shorten the life of your actual exercise equipment as well. But again, it goes back to cleaning properly, not necessarily using a high pH product or something like TB-Side Quat, which is a great formula, but it's actually a very high pH, a lot of solvent in there. It's built like a heavy-duty degreaser, and something that you wouldn't want to be leaving on a surface when you've got over 2,300 ppms of quat on there. And if somebody sits in a wet solution of that, you can end up with skin burns. So also with overspray, I mean, I'm a gym rat myself, and there's the last thing I want to be doing is having 300 pounds on the bench press and somebody overspraying a treadmill above me, and I get blasted with a face full of bleach. So again, it goes back to selecting the right products for the right surface and using them at the right level and wiping them off properly. So back to you, Callie.
Okay, all right, and then there's a couple questions in here, so I figured I should bring this one up. They're asking about some products are making a residual pathogen kill. Can you explain what is going on with that, Jason?
Sure. Quite honestly, I'm not a big firm believer in these residual pathogen kill claims. Basically, because you put it on a surface, you let it dry, it forms a film. But honestly, after it's only good till the next person touches that surface. So most of those things fall under the treated article exemption, and a lot of those products are actually kind of stretching out what is actually able to be claimed on a treated article surface. Most of those are for odor control or construction materials where you're treating lumber so it doesn't grow mold or mildew over time, so you can they act as preservatives. They're not really good for healthcare or those sort of environments because they give a false sense of security, and they kind of give the idea that you don't have to frequently clean surfaces more, and they're really not doing what they claim to do in that sort of situation. A lot of them are silicone chemistry, and they can lead to attracting dirt over time as well. So essentially it goes back to doing the right thing, which is cleaning as opposed to trying to disinfect or leave some magical surface protection behind.
Yeah, that's well put. Okay, so this is really the end of our time with this broadcast. I did want to address, there are questions about how to buy Spartan products, and Spartan sells through distribution only. So you can go to our website and fill out a how to buy submission form or search for a distributor near you. We do not sell direct, and you cannot buy products on our website. And then what you can do on our website, though, is find out really great information. And this is where we'll be putting all of our COVID information. Again, for anyone who joined late, you go to spartanchemical.com, and then right from the homepage, you're going to click off to read more about our policies and resources for COVID-19. That takes you to a solutions page for COVID-19, which includes all sorts of information, downloadable charts, videos, technical information. This presentation will be there, link to view this recording. There's frequently asked questions, just pretty much everything that you can think of that you're going to need to prepare yourself from a cleaning and janitorial aspect. So thank you again to all of our presenters. On behalf of myself, Jason, John, Lauren, and Nate, thank you to all of our attendees. We appreciate the work that you're doing out there, and keep up the good work.